Welcome to Rom Wills Money Matters. Don't start a business unless you are ready. And what do I mean by ready? There's two types of ready. The first ready is actually know what you're doing in the business. I have been acquainted and even known some people. I would even call them friends who started businesses and they didn't know what they were doing. And you have a lot of people out there like that. That's why you have most businesses really don't last past a year. Most people will start something, get something going, and they have no idea what they're doing. They just said, oh, this business making money. Oh, all these people making money with it. That's why I said in a video a month ago, a couple months ago, check my archives. I say, don't go for those get rich quick schemes. Don't go for those type of videos that tell you that, oh, you can make money overnight. First of all, if you jump into a business, you need to know the ins and outs of it. You need to know the ins and outs. I don't care. You need to know every little thing about that business. You need to study it. If you can get a mentor in the business, you need to know it before you jump into it. There are a lot of little things that you're not thinking about. Let me use a great example because real estate is always a great business, but there's a lot of little things. If you want to be a real estate agent or if you want to get property and rent it out, there's a lot of little things you need to know that people aren't talking about. Yeah, you might see that real estate agent or that real estate owner driving around that nice car, that nice late model car, but you don't know what they had to do to get there. Don't jump into some business, any business, a business like that or any business without knowing all the little stuff, knowing all the pitfalls. You need to know every little thing. And that's just on one angle. That's just on one angle, knowing the business. You might not be ready for all the other little stuff. There's a radio network. I'm not going to give the radio network because, well, they're not paying me for it. But I remember reading how the woman who started this network started. Her and her son, they were sleeping on the floors of their radio station. They were sleeping on the floors of it. Indeed, there's a well-known billionaire was supposedly sleeping at the factory. They sacrifice. One of the things that's not talked about enough is when business owners sacrifice something. Now, I've talked about sleeping on an air mattress. I have no problem saying that. And it was tough at first. In fact, I did a video talking about I only had $4 to my name one time. $4 to my name. And I was working a full-time job, had my publishing business, and really just getting started doing this. It is tough. It is tough. In fact, it's funny because I remember I got a detractor. He hit me up and said, oh, you doing these videos? Hey, I can do these videos. I was like, good luck. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to be done with this because you just seeing the final product. They don't see the recording. They don't see the editing. Putting music to it, dressing up for it. There's a lot of little things, thinking about what you're going to wear, everything. So that's even getting the business, but just even getting to that point where you're successful, Now, I've known scores of people who've been successful. I've known scores of people who haven't been successful. There's always a lot of little stuff. When you want to get into business, you got to be ready on two levels. First, you got to know the business. Don't just jump into it because you saw a video, somebody saying, hey, get rich quick, or everybody's jumping into it. Because I knew somebody, I remember during the aughts, when it was big to get houses, we saw what happened there. But it was big to get houses, and somebody jumped into it late. And they got the house, fixed it up, and they ended up selling it, making some money, but it was barely. It was towards the end of it, so it wasn't as easy for them. They shouldn't have jumped into it. They weren't ready for it. Yeah, they managed to luck up, but everybody doesn't luck up. You need to know the business, study the business, read about it. If you can get an editor, mentor, it should get an editor sometimes. Hey, let me go with that. Let me go with that. If you jump into the publishing business, know what you're doing. Because when I jumped into the publishing business, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. Now I learned it, but it would have been better if I knew stuff from the get-go. Don't learn as you go. Try to learn before you get started. Now, I lucked up, but don't be like me. Some of the stuff I tell you is so you don't make the same mistakes I do. It was 6 years before I made money. That could have been cut down to maybe 3 years or even 2 years. If I really knew what I was doing. If I read up, got some mentors, and things of that nature. So that's one thing. You want to know what you're doing. You want to learn. You want to take classes, get certifications, maybe be an apprentice depending on the job. Really know the ins and outs. I'll never forget this guy who went to law school. He went to law school, passed the bar, and he started working for a major firm in D.C. And the guy said, everything you learned in law school is not going to do you any good here. They had to teach him all over. That's how it goes in business. And then there's the part you got to sacrifice. If you know of a business where you can start off right away making big money, please let me know in the comments. I'm just curious. Or you know of someone who's done that. I'm quite sure somebody has. But for the overwhelming majority of people, they're not ready for the other stuff that comes with it. And that's very important. They're not ready to sleep on their air mattress. They're not ready to sacrifice, not ready to give up all those fly clothes, not ready to give up that fly car. They might have to drive around in that hoopty. Shoot, they might have to take public transportation. You had to sacrifice a lot. And even then, because I can think of a bookstore that did well seemingly, but they started out selling books on the street. And then even then, there's amount of luck that goes into it, because like that particular bookstore, I'm not going to give their name, but I heard somebody died and left the owner a lot of money. Now, they were in a position of luck. But still, even before that, they were still doing the things that they had to do. You don't jump into a business. First, learn everything you have to learn, and then be prepared. I can't emphasize this enough. Be prepared for the sacrifices you're going to have to make. Like I say, you might have to sleep on the air mattress. You might not be able to buy like that latest brand of shoes or something. You might not be able to go out. Shoot, you might not be able to date. It's like, like for the fellas watching this, you might not be able to date that fly woman, take her to that hot restaurant. You can't afford it. Or even the ladies, you might not be able to buy like that makeup and all of that stuff right away. But you're going to have to sacrifice. Don't get into business unless you are ready, both professionally and privately, okay? Just remember that, all right? So that's all I have for today. You know the deal. Let's go make that money.